Hello, thank you for joining me today as I talk through my 2024 knitting intentions. Hi everyone, I hope that you are having a wonderful day. As you would have seen from the title and my introduction, I am going through my 2024 knitting intentions, resolutions, goals, loose plans or mindsets, whatever you want to call them. Today it is super cold, super snowy out, so I think that it's the perfect day to film this video because I'm kind of stuck inside feeling reflective. So excited to talk through what my 2024 intentions are. Before we get into it, I have a quick few things of admin. First of all, thank you so much for bearing with the audio in my last video, the 2023 everything I made in 2023 video. I know that it was touchy at times. I'm still kind of experimenting with the microphone, so I'm not wearing it today. So yeah, thank you for bearing with as I'm trying to bring up the quality of these videos. There might be some bumps along the way, so thank you. I also wanted to say that since that video, we have hit 1,000 subscribers, which is crazy that there are quadruple digits of people interested in my knitting. So thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. Of course, the audience, I think I would rather have a much more engaged audience of 100 than a less engaged audience of 1,000, but you all are engaged, so I really appreciate you being here with me. Thank you. And yeah, that's all my admin. Let's just jump into it. So between probably Christmas and now, I've been thinking a lot about what I learned from my knitting in 2023 and how I would like to shift things or continue things through the new year. So I've ended up writing down with crudely drawn little doodles 10 knitting intentions for 2024 that I will be sharing with you. So yeah, I'm excited about all of them, and let's just get into it. The first one is to explore new fibers. In 2024, I would love to say at the end of the year that I understand the difference between different wool types more. I've tried different animal fibers as well. I would love to try camel yarn, for instance, and to try new plant fibers. Some fibers I have my eyes on for trying are BFL, Corriedale, camel yarn, as I mentioned, Rambouillet, and then I've never knit with cotton before, so I figure maybe in 2024 I should do a cotton yarn project. So yeah, those are the new fibers that I am interested in exploring, and I hope that this will deepen my knowledge of yarn and fibers beyond what I currently have, because I do really want to have like a deep breadth and depth of knowledge when it comes to yarn and knitting and everything to do with it. So yeah. Okay, the next thing that I would love to do in 2024 is bring my stash down. I would love to end the year with a net negative stash. Right now, I don't remember the exact number, but I have over 7,000 grams of yarn in my stash, and that is overwhelming to me. I know that it is not as big as other people's stashes, and it's smaller than, and it's a lot larger than others, so we're all different when it comes to our own personal, levels of stash overwhelm. Mine just happens to be pretty low. So I would really love to know what everything is in my stash at all times, know where it is, have projects assigned for the majority, and just be excited about everything in my stash. There is a fair amount of yarn right now in my stash that I've forgotten about it because I bought it so long ago, and then other more exciting new yarn came up, and so I've forgotten about it and need to rediscover it, or it's stuff that I bought when I first started knitting and frankly I'm just not going to use. It's a larger weight than I'm comfortable working at, or it's acrylic and I don't love using acrylic, or it's mohair and it's really itchy. So I would like to, first of all, enter a 6-month yarn ban period. So from January through July, I am not planning on buying any yarn. And then I would also love to destash a lot of the yarn that I don't love. there's a lot of it that should be knit up. It's wonderful yarn, but I am not the person to knit it up. So I will be donating some of it, potentially doing a destash, but I think the majority of what I would want to get rid of is partially used skeins or acrylic yarn, and I don't know what the interest would be in that, so I will likely just donate or give to friends and family for that yarn. So yeah, hopefully by the end of the year I can confidently say that I know what everything in my stash is, it has plans, and I'm really excited and happy about all of it. My third intention this year is to knit from the patterns I already own. For some reason, since like Black Friday in late November through the end of the year of 2023, I bought so many knitting patterns. I think that there just kept being sales, and I just, in my head, like, knitting patterns, they're the cheapest part of a knitting project, so therefore they do not cost any money. That is not true. They do cost money. I need to think about when I am buying knitting patterns. And long story short, I have ended up with like probably 10 to 20 knitting patterns that I bought that I have not had plans to actually knit up. I was really inspired by the projects and I bought the pattern, but I don't have definite plans to knit the project up. And I would really like to knit from those patterns because they are all really inspiring, but I keep just going and finding something else and knitting that up instead. So I, at the very least, am going to be doing a 2-month pattern ban from January through March 1st to knit from the patterns that I already have, or find free patterns, or make up my own patterns. All of those are fine options, but I just want to be intentional that I am not buying new patterns when I already have really good patterns that I would love to show some love to. So yeah. The next thing on my list is to deepen my knowledge of yarn. So to me, I am kind of saying that I would love to try dyeing yarn in this realm, as far as maybe trying to dye it with Kool-Aid or using natural dyes to dye it. I do live in an apartment with a pretty small kitchen, so I don't necessarily want to try acid dyeing or other more chemical based, I guess everything's a chemical, but more not food safe based ways of dyeing, because I will have to do that in my kitchen. So would love to try that. I think that trying yarn dyeing is just really going to help me understand the fibers a little bit better, how they absorb yarn, and I love hand-dyed yarn, and so I would love to know a little bit more about that process by experiencing it myself. So that is the first thing that I would love to try. The next thing is I would love to try spinning this year. I saw a lot of people in 2023 get and start using drop spindles, e-spinners, or a whole spinning wheel. I, of course, would probably start with the drop spindle because that is the cheapest option and see how I like it. But I think that it would be really interesting to also understand not only would I like to spin to just have another way to love wool and experience wool, but also I think that spinning would give me more understanding of yarn construction. So, you know, I hear a lot of people say, this is a worsted spun, this is a woolen spun, things like that, that I currently have like a vague idea of what those concepts mean, but I would love to kind of figure out a little bit more by experiencing making a woolen or a worsted spun myself, or plying yarn as well. So I would be heavily interested in doing that. I also think that spinning, from what I've seen, is a really great way to try new fibers, because a lot of unspun, it's not called unspun wool, but a lot of the batting or tops, I think they're tops, have interesting fiber blends that you can't necessarily find as commercial yarn. So maybe my first goal of exploring new fibers and my fourth goal of deepening my knowledge of yarn will go together nicely. The fifth thing that I hope to do, or my fifth intention for 2024, is to expand my knitting knowledge. So There are a few things that I have under this intention. The first is to try a new stitch pattern. It has been quite a while since I've really tried a new stitch or kind of not construction technique, but garment technique or fabric technique for the first time. You know, I did cables this year, I did lace this year, tried brioche, and I would love to continue that into 2024. And potentially, I think I haven't tried fisherman's rib yet, so I would love to try that, or half fisherman's rib. There's a lot of different things. I would also love to revisit brioche at a smaller gauge. So lots of potential new stitches for me to try. I'd also love to try a new construction type. I've never made a circular yoke sweater, for instance, or there's a couple other sweater techniques I've never done before that I would be interested in trying. I've also never made a colorwork garment, so that could be an interesting technique as well, or interesting construction as well. And then finally, this year, I would love to make my own design. I don't know if I would want to then turn that into a pattern and sell that design, or if I would just want to make something for myself, but I would really like to push myself a little bit further in my knitting skills to show myself that I can, in fact, make a sweater, make a cardigan, make a pair of socks, whatever I decide to design, without, you know, a written instructions. Like, I have spent a lot of time making socks. I could probably at this point make them without a pattern, but I never have, even for vanilla socks. And so I'd really love to push myself in that regard to just deepen that skill level and deepen that knowledge to really feel like I'm like a big knitter. So yeah, okay, we're on the second page, and the next intention I have for this year is to make more socks. So I specifically put this goal down because I think that it will help me stash down a little bit. I do have a lot of single skeins of sock yarn, so I would love to do the 12 and 12 challenge that a lot of people talk about. I don't know if it's necessarily talked about as a challenge, but the 12 and 12 thing that I've heard a fair amount of knitters talk about, in which you knit one pair of socks per month, typically from stash yarn, for the whole year, so that at the end of the 12 months of the year you have 12 pairs of socks. So I would love to be participating in this. I am going to, let's say it like that. I am happy to be participating in this, and I am also adding, for me, not only do I want to knit mostly from stash, there are a few pairs of socks that I might need to buy some yarn for if I do color work, but mostly from stash. And then I also would love to knit from the sock patterns that I already have. So I will not be buying a sock pattern for any of the 12 and 12 this year as well. So I'm excited about that. The next thing on my intentions list, number 7, is to wear my knits more often. You can see I am wearing a knit today, and I wear knits a lot when I film videos, but I don't know, I don't wear them out of my house too often. Part of that is I do work from home, so I don't leave my house that often. And when I do, it's normally to go to a workout class or go to the grocery store or things like that. And even when I am in my house and I'm working, I don't wear my knits too often. So I would really love to change that. To me, a lot of my knits feel like special occasion knitwear, even though they're pretty casual sweaters. It's just a sweater, but to me it's special because I made it. So I would really love to push myself this year to wear my knits more often and also style them more. So I want to actually put some more time into sitting down and looking at my knitwear that I have and think, like, what commercially made garments do I have that go well with this, as far as pants or underlayers or dresses? Like, how can I really style this piece to make it shine and make it feel more casual if I am going out, make it feel like less of kind of the star of the show and more of just like a sweater I'm wearing, or, you know, dress them up a little bit more and feel just more comfortable. I remember a while ago, High Fiber Knits, Emily filmed a video talking about how knitting has ruined her personal style, and one of the things she talked about was that, you know, when she wears something she's made, she doesn't really style the outfit around it, or like a lot of knitters do that, where, you know, I made this sweater. The sweater is the important part. Screw everything else about my outfit. I want it to be highlighting the sweater I'm wearing. But I would really love this year to try to have my knitwear be part of a full outfit instead of the outfit, if that makes sense. So I want to wear the knits more often and wear them more intentionally with like making a full outfit. I would also love to document the knit fits I wear more because I definitely, don't really take pictures of the things I wear, and I think that'll help me reflect back on like how often am I wearing my knitwear, and will help to kind of have some inspiration for myself going forward as I look at them to say like, okay, how can I improve this, or should I wear that again? What if I wore it with this instead? And potentially provide inspiration to others as well who are struggling with the same issues. All right. My 8th one might be slightly controversial, and my 8th intention for this year is to knit less. So last year I made 41 things and 14 of them were gifts. I did 5 test knits and 2 sample knits, and that's a lot of deadlines, and that's a lot of knitting. Just straight up, that was hours and hours and hours of knitting. And this year I have goals or intentions for expanding other areas of my life. I really want to be getting outside more, going on walks more frequently, reading more, engaging more with new friends and family. I just started a new job and would love to engage with my coworkers more. So there's a lot of new things or things in my life that I would like to expand. And unfortunately, I only have a certain amount of hours in a day. And so likely my knitting will have to contract a little because I do spend a lot of time knitting. So that is one reason that why I would like to knit less this year, is to just let more in by knitting less. Another reason that I would like to knit less this year and kind of slow down with the knitting is because I've realized like I definitely speed through a lot of my projects. My average project duration in 2023 was 10 days with like a lot of sweaters, and it definitely sped up near the end of the year. I was making a lot of accessories, but still I normally give myself 2.5 weeks to make an entire sweater. I will give myself 5 to 6 days to knit a pair of socks and be annoyed or upset if it's taking longer than that. And I would like to slow down on that because I've realized I at times have been working on a design or a pattern and I'm knitting it so quickly that I'm not fully thinking about it. Like I'm not stepping away long enough to think about the design or any of the elements that I'd potentially like to modify in the pattern. I'm just, knitting. So I would like to give myself more time to think about, like with this cardigan, for instance, I was knitting it kind of off gauge and I kind of knew like, okay, I'm much larger on the gauge. My row gauge is larger, which means my V-neck depth is going to be larger, but I didn't really, and I thought about that when I first started, but then I got into the project and I couldn't really come up with a good way to change the motif, to have the increases I needed to have the V-neck depth be kind of more like this than what it actually is, where it's like below my bra, basically. And if I think that if I had slowed down a little bit more and not knit basically a panel, like I knit the entire right panel in probably a day, if I had slowed down a little and stepped back from it and thought about it more, I probably could have figured out how to change the increase rate so that I had a shallower V-neck depth. And there's a lot of things like that with my patterns where just because I'm knitting them so quickly, I don't really think about them. And I would love to just be more intentional with my knitting time to make sure that I am investing in a garment that I'm going to wear and love. And I do love this garment, but I would like it if it was maybe a little bit like the first button was like up here and I could wear it more as a shirt, because obviously I cannot wear this as a shirt if it is lower than my bra. So yeah, knitting less is going to be a goal of mine this year. We'll see. I still might end up making more total things than I did last year. But that's partially because at the beginning of the year, I would still categorize, of 2023, I would still categorize myself as a beginner knitter. So things took me a lot longer. So I am quicker and I don't feel the need to like slow myself down in the actual knitting. I'm going to knit at the speed I knit at, but I want to take more breaks, take more time away from my knitting, and potentially also move slightly away from being a monogamous knitter to have like, okay, this project requires some thinking. I don't have the mood for thinking right now. Let's switch to this project, which doesn't really require as much thinking. So still kind of playing with that, but definitely want to knit less, have my projects take longer, and just move slower overall. All right, my next knitting intention, or the 9th one, is to have fewer deadlines. This kind of goes into, or is kind of a piggyback off of my 8th knitting intention of knitting less. But you know, for the past, since October, I have been doing gift knits. As I mentioned, did 10 test knits this year, 2 sample knits. So my 14 gift knits, my 10 test knits, my 2 sample knits, those all have associated deadlines. And doing that much deadline knitting definitely takes some of the joy out of knitting because you're moving a lot quicker to get things done. You just have to. And I also, in my work life, in my school, I've always done this where I feel like if I'm not done with something 2 days at least before the deadline, I'm not done with it. Like I've failed. And so that definitely expands into my knitting as well, where if I have a deadline that is 2 weeks from now, I feel like if I can't have my project done like a week before the deadline, then I'm not going to accomplish the deadline. And so I end up just kind of knitting really quickly to get things done. And I've still enjoyed everything that I made under a deadline this year, but it has left me less space for creativity or pivoting or thinking through how I could make things better. So I'm setting for myself that I would like to only have 1 knitting deadline per month. I'm definitely not going to stop test knitting and sample knitting and a little bit of gift knitting, but I would really like to back off a little bit this year and let this year be about my making and my creative process and less about making things for other people and like the final output. So we'll see if I can stick to that. I've kind of already broken it. I've already done a sample knit this year. I have another one coming and I have a test knit. The second sample knit and the test knit are both due in February, but I think that, you know, it'll be fine. And then going forward, I definitely want to be more intentional about the test knits or sample knits I accept and make sure that my deadline level is a little bit lower. All right, and my final knitting intention of 2024 is to have more community and less content. So this does kind of go a little bit outside of knitting, but I do run a knitting YouTube that you are watching now. Hello. And I have a knitting Instagram, and I definitely tend to be more, first I will talk from a consumer side. So I, as someone watching YouTube videos or looking at Instagram posts, tend to be more of kind of a silent scroller and don't comment. I don't always even like I'm just kind of scrolling and consuming content, or just watching videos and then going to the next one. And I want to be a lot more intentional this year about building the online community around me for knitting. You know, there are so many amazing knitters who post, who make videos like I do and do all of this, and I want to be their friend. I want to tell them how cool their work is. I mean, as someone who posts, I know how impactful that is. So I do really want to focus more on engaging with other creators. Feels weird to call myself a creator, but other other knitters who are posting their stuff. I would really love to just comment more and interact more. Share more as well, the things that are inspiring me, put them on my story, do what I can to kind of just be a sharer and foster community in this online world where it can so easily go towards that kind of silent scrolling. So that's kind of on the consumption side. Like, I want to interact with the people that inspire me more. On the producing or creating side, I want to make content that is more engaging to my audience. So that is you. You know, I'm not quite sure what form this is going to take, but I definitely want to start by asking for more feedback or asking for your experience with things. You know, I would love to hear your 2024 knitting intentions down below. Things like that to really engage my audience more and make this feel like not only are you just watching me do something, but I get to hear from you, you get to hear from other people in the comments. Like, I would just love to create more of a community around this channel. So yeah. All right, those are my knitting intentions. This might be the shortest video I've ever made, which is impressive for me, that we're just now still under the half-hour mark. Amazing job. Thank you so much for watching this. I would love, 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 love to hear if you have any 2024 knitting intentions, if you have any thoughts about the things I shared today. Please tell me down below. Engage with me, please. I would love that. And if you have any thoughts about how to more intentionally engage my audience, if you've seen creators do other things, if you would be interested in me doing polls or posting on my story more, doing things for a Q&A, like whatever would make you excited to interact with me, please let me know down below as well. I would love to hear that. But okay, I'm gonna stop it here. I definitely am getting a little rambly. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you are staying warm, you're staying dry. I hope that you are loving whatever project you're working on, and I'm wishing you a good start to 2024. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. And in the meantime, happy knitting. Bye.